Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the mighty Gluestick channel. I make videos about Dungeons & Dragons lore full-time and have a collection of hundreds of monster ecology, fantasy world history, character class and magic item videos on my channel. If you would like to know more, hit the subscribe button. Returning to the Spelljammer setting today for some more fantasy sword and sorcery in space. I actually call Spelljammer not a setting per se, but as an accessory because it fits with all the other settings that are in the Dungeons & Dragons lineup for the greater multiverse. The Beholders have a significant presence in the D&D prime material plane. In Spelljammer, the full extent of their spread throughout the spheres is mapped out for us, and within this territory lives these very interesting, freaky alien creatures which I think absolutely need more attention. So today, we're going to get way too close for comfort with the Argos. The Argos are the very model of alien horrors from beyond, and they are an excellent addition to the category of aberrations. They are large in size, the upper extent of their possible size and mass is unknown, and they could pose quite a challenge to an adventuring band of characters if encountered after they've spent some time in a target-rich environment and had ample opportunity to gorge themselves on prey, which we will discover. Argos society exists within Beholder enclaves and other environments the Beholders frequent, and they have a strange sort of relationship with the floating eye tyrants. This is very strongly suggesting that the Argos are or were native to the same environment that the Beholders came from, or at least share a similar origin, or share enough similarities to the Beholders that the two species have formed a symbiotic relationship with each other, insofar as that is possible with the extremely arrogant and xenophobic Beholders. An Argos is an intelligent, amorphous creature, unfortunately quite dominated by its high metabolic demands and its ever-present hunger. An Argos resembles a giant amoeba, covered with 100 small, lidless, inhuman eyes, many sharp-toothed mouths, and a single large central eye with a tripartite pupil, that's 3 pupils radiating from a central point. Its flesh is translucent and tends towards blue and purple. Its internal organs are something of a mystery, and it doesn't seem to have a single heart or brain, but a mobile internal anatomy with many loosely connected organs, or many redundant or just evenly dispersed parts across its entire mass. An Argos can fly in a manner a lot like a Beholder with some effort, but it is clumsy in the air and prefers to stay on the ground. While Argos can and do use tools, storing them in a temporary stomach pouch, the digestive acids inside those pouches tend to eventually break items down, so they make use of gold to coat items they wish to preserve. An Argos continually gives off a sweet-smelling odour reminiscent of flowers, which in no way serves to lessen the horrific nature of their appearance. They are monstrous, weird, vicious-looking creatures that tend to give most intelligent races the heebie-jeebies, and with good reason, as the Argos considers most other life forms food first and any other possible uses second. It does seem strange that the Beholders and their kin would keep such creatures around and actually let them live among their cities, enclaves and on board their spacefaring ships. However, the Argos are extremely useful in at least 2 ways to the crew of any Spelljammer vessel or any habitat out in space. First, an Argos naturally produces breathable air as part of its metabolic process. As such, it can't be drowned or asphyxiated, and they have immunity to all toxic gas attacks, including toxic atmospheres. This also means that as a normal part of their biology, they will constantly refresh the air on a spelljamming ship, which is very handy. Second, they are intelligent tool-using beings whose bodies can squeeze into tight spaces and fit through narrow gaps, and along with their more extraordinary powers, makes them the perfect engineers to have on board a vessel or habitat, able to survive in a wider range of environments and be able to get on into hard-to-reach areas to restore and repair damaged or worn-out parts. The downside is, generally speaking, they tend to be neutral evil in alignment, and they have a ravenous appetite, with few reservations about eating any other creature or plant they come across. The notable exception to that is the Beholders, of course. Argos are often found in Beholder enclaves, acting as enforcers, or strangely enough, pets. All Argos treat Beholders with great respect and obedience, and never attack a Beholder, even when starving. There are a lot of similarities between the two species, though at first glance they may seem quite different when you look past the twisting and contorting amorphous body. Both species have a large main eye, many smaller eyes, and magical powers. They can naturally fly by some internal form of propulsion. Argos don't have one large maw, they have many small fanged mouths over their entire body, each forming the opening to one of their acidic internal digestion pouches. Unlike Beholders, they can form pseudopods, each will have no less than 3 of their small mouths on it, and they can use those to grip objects and manipulate equipment just as we would use our hands. In combat, the Argos tends to be unstable and erratic, almost frantic in their movements and contortions, but they will be singularly focused on one target when they are not just fighting. They will be attempting to eat them. Beholders don't send groups of Argos to capture enemies, they send the Argos to consume them. Argos grow larger when they absorb food, and they do so by grabbing hold of a target with their many small mouths and engulfing the entire creature. They can hold 1 medium-sized creature, or 2 small creatures, or 4 tiny, and so on, each in a separate stomach pouch which immediately begins to digest the victim with powerful acid. When an Argos has consumed a creature, tally up what the full hit points of that creature were, and if the Argos has consumed a total amount of hit points worth of victims of at least twice its own full hit points, then it gains an additional 1d10 hit points to its maximum hit point total and grows a little larger. After the Argos is fed, it becomes lethargic with disadvantage on all ability checks for 2 hours per 10 hit points the Argos has. An Argos must eat enough to at least equal its current hit point total per month, or it will begin to reduce in size due to starvation. However, the Argos has a very handy ability to transform its epidermal layers into a hard and sealed chrysalis in order to preserve itself and slow down its metabolism. In the chrysalis state, an Argos will only lose 1 hit point to starvation per week instead of 10 hit points per month. It's also protected by this tough natural armor and requires no food or water at all. When it needs to return to a mobile predatory state, it takes only 1d4 minutes to dissolve the chrysalis and be fully combat ready. As you can imagine, this makes them extremely effective as emergency shock troops that can be shot at an enemy vessel and quickly spread complete mayhem, then return to a dormant state again afterward. Argos move at 25 feet per round along any surface thanks to their amorphous form and their gripping maws. Plus, as mentioned, they can fly, but only at 10 feet per round, and they are fairly clumsy in the air, so prefer to stay on a surface. This is, you can basically reenact the scene from Doctor Who where the Daleks suddenly took flight, because they don't seem like they should fly, and they don't exhibit any evidence that they can fly until suddenly they can. This gives them a range of combat tactics that are quite formidable, such as dropping down on a target to spread out like a net to engulf them and tear them to shreds. They are covered in mouths and can exude up to 3 pseudopods at a time facing one opponent, each of which can carry 1 melee weapon or attack with 1d4 mouths at a time, each inflicting 1d4 piercing damage on a bite attack. For simplicity's sake, just roll to attack 3 times. If a pseudopod hits, the weapon or all of its mouths on that pseudopod hit, and if the mouths hit, they can latch on for a grapple. It depends on the challenge rating that you're looking for the Argos, but they usually come in between 1 to 5 challenge rating, and that gives them a range of hit bonuses. The Argos are not well protected. It has a natural armor class of 11 and typically a minimum of 100 hit points. They can be encountered with up to twice as many hit points, so you've got a range of difficulty when you're dealing with the Argos. When covered in a hardened chrysalis, they are immobile and have an armor class of 18 with advantage on any saving throws against non-magical physical damage, plus resistance to fire and cold damage. If the Argos rolls a natural 20 on a bite attack and the victim is below large size, the Argos, if they're not already full, will swallow a creature whole, and if it is already grappling a creature and rolls a successful bite attack, it can also swallow that creature. While swallowed, the creature is blinded and restrained, has total cover against attacks and other effects outside the Argos, and takes 2d8 acid damage at the start of each of the Argos' turns. If the Argos takes 20 damage or more in a single turn from a creature inside it, the Argos must succeed on a DC 15 Constitution saving throw at the end of its turn or regurgitate that swallowed creature, which will fall prone in a space within 5 feet of the Argos. If the Argos dies, all swallowed creatures are no longer restrained by it and can escape from the corpse, using 5 feet of movement, exiting prone. Remember how I said that the Argos can extrude up to 3 pseudopods at a time facing an opponent? They can take on opponents on any side of them, so if they drop down into a square inside a crowd of creatures, they can extrude 3 pseudopods per adjacent enemy. Also, they are amorphous and they have no problem squeezing through spaces, but keep in mind the objects and victims that they may be carrying along with them internally. They can't compress those. Okay, pretty formidable already, right? Well, unfortunately there is another very important similarity between the Argos and the Beholder. You guessed it, eye rays. Yep, Every one of those 100 lidless eyes is capable of unleashing a spell-like effect. Each eye has its own effect and can bring 1d10 of those eyes to bear on each round of combat to different targets. Luckily, each hit point of damage that the Argos takes will eliminate one of those eyes, which is way too complicated to keep track of in combat. So just reduce the number of eye rays from 1d10 to 1d6 when it's half its hit point total, and down to 1d4 eye rays when it's 1/4 of its hit points left. Easily done. Thus far, 20 different eye effects have been observed in action, but there's no telling what the full extent of an Argos' eye ray powers are, which is my code for keep the players on their toes and get inventive. But this is the list of 20 known rays. Blindness, Burning Hands in the form of ray, Charm Monster, Clairvoyance, Confusion, Darkness, Dispel Magic, Calm Emotions, Bestow Curse, Cause Fear, Frostbite, Heat Metal, Hold Monster, Phantasmal Killer, Light, Suggestion, Slow, Tongues, Blind, and Flesh to Stone. Notably, they don't have some of the Beholder's powers such as telekinesis. In addition, and possibly linked to the larger three-pupilled eye of the Argos, each round it can cast either Alter Self, Colour Spray, or Ray of Enfeeblement. The Alter Self allows it to adapt to different environments, not take on the form of any humanoid, such as being able to breathe underwater or gain a burrow speed. This certainly makes the Argos a pretty potent force of chaos, and when you consider that these could actually be catapulted onto an enemy spelljamming vessel in groups, it's a recipe for pure mayhem. Thankfully though, Argos are normally solitary creatures. The attributes of the Argos are 10 Strength, 13 Dexterity, 12 Constitution, 11 Intelligence, 13 Wisdom, and 13 Charisma. The DC for the eye rays should be about 14, and the rays are not required to make an attack roll. They will hit any target within 60 feet of the Argos that it desires and it can see. Argos don't congregate together under normal circumstances. Their ability to adapt to environments and travel under their own power as well as replenish their own air supply means that they're capable of operating in wild space and can be found in asteroid clusters or hunting through wrecked ships looking for food. They are omnivorous and can actually consume wood and canvas, so they may literally be eating a wrecked ship, so they're wildly dispersed through space. In Beholder enclaves, they roam around freely, consuming organic material that the Beholders care nothing about. They will never attack a Beholder, and if ordered to, they will not attack any creature or object the Beholder orders them not to. One interesting use the Beholders put the Argos to is to form a shaped crystallis structure, both as useful components, such as plugging a hole in a ship or building, creating a gangplank or bridge over a gap, that their flightless slaves can then cross over, even forming decorative and bizarre sculptures and hiding the Argos minions in plain sight until ordered to return to their amorphous form. Definitely a fun combat tactic for the Beholders. Argos are intelligent. They can also speak. They share the language of the Beholders and can learn how to speak Common. They certainly have no problem going toe-to-toe with opponents, but if left to their own natural hunting methods, what they do is lure or chase victims into traps and then move in to finish off helpless targets, first picking through the target's belongings, curious as to what sort of tools and equipment they may have on them, before consuming all organic material and moving on. Information on their lifespan or reproductive methods is not available, unfortunately, but it is suspected that they have multiple methods of reproduction, just as weird as the rest of their biology. They don't appear to reproduce in the same manner as Beholders, manifesting dreams into physical forms, thankfully. Are very fun creatures, so many possible uses, and hey, they may be neutral evil predators who work for megalomaniacal floating death machines, but who knows? When fully fed and engaged in some sort of passion project engineering task, they may actually be fun to talk to or actually help other creatures, particularly something as fascinating as a warforged, which they would probably avoid trying to eat unless they're really starving because it would be such a tragic waste of wonderful artifice and engineering. Certainly do give the individual Argos characters class levels and involve them in unexpected ways in your campaign. For instance, an iron golem on board an alien space vessel is fine, but when it grinds to a halt towards the end of combat, a hatch suddenly pops open with a hiss of floral-scented air and a slithering, angry Argos floats out of the thing, extracting gold-plated blades from internal pouches and unleashing a hail of magic rays. Well, that just got epic. Combine mimics, Argos, beholderkin, ropers, piercers, oozers, along with mind-controlled slave species to bring a beholder vessel, enclave, or city to life. The weird architecture of a species of 10-foot floating spheres who care nothing about filthy or difficult floors and live in narrow, round towers with no stairs and very little concern for dizzying drops. A penchant for toxic gases and exotic animal collections. Spelljammer space travel can be absolutely hilarious as well as quite dangerous. Either way, very memorable and very engaging. Please hit the like button if you made it this far, subscribe if you like what I do, check out my Patreon for the exclusive content and all the full scripts for these videos, buy some merchandise, wear your geek with pride, and as always, thanks for listening and I'll be back with more for you very soon.